misbehave, if they do something bad, but right now, we'll see. But you know, it's a possibility that could happen, certainly.
Couldn't be prouder.
US President Donald Trump tells reporters that there is the possibility US could restart strikes on Iran. This, as the president said, he would soon review the latest peace proposal from Iran, but cast aspersions on its prospects. Iran targets President Trump for saying US acted like pirates on seizure of Iranian vessels. Iranian Foreign Ministry calls it direct and damning admission of the criminal nature of US actions.
Why is the US removing troops from Germany?
We're going to cut way down, and we're cutting a lot further than 5,000. Thank you very much.
President Trump says US will cut way down on the number of American troops stationed in Germany. There are reportedly over 36,000 active duty American troops in the country.
Winning it, winning it, winning it, winning it, winning it, winning it.
White House shares a video of President Donald Trump saying winning for over 1 hour. Caption says cannot stop, will not stop. Paul Thomas Allen, the man accused of attempting to assassinate President Donald Trump last weekend, requests a judge to remove him from suicide precautions while in jail. Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te arrives in Eswatini, the island's only diplomatic ally in Africa, after an earlier trip was cancelled when several countries revoked over flight permits amid Chinese objections. Around 25 to 30 people rescued after floating hutments were damaged by a severe storm near Uttarakhand's Tigri Garhwal district. Farmers, fishermen and bakers take to the streets of Paris to protest against rising energy costs. Several trade collectives organized in the protest in front of the Dome of Les Invalides. OPEC Plus delegates provisionally agrees to raise June oil output by about 188,000 barrels per day. Led by Saudi Arabia and Russia, the deal to be finalized in a virtual meet that reflects continued modest supply increases despite market uncertainty. And we begin first up with the latest statement coming in from President Donald Trump, who says that he will soon review a new plan from Iran to end the war, but has already cast doubt on its prospects. In fact, the US president also told reporters that there is a possibility that United States could restart strikes on Iran. It was in a Truth Social post that the US president said that he would review the plan put forth by Iran, but added that he cannot imagine it would be acceptable. Trump went on to say that Iran has not yet paid a big enough price for what it has done to humanity and world over the last 47 years. Later, speaking to reporters in Florida, Trump did not deny the possibility of future strikes in Iran, but declined to specify what could trigger new military action.
would you please start military strikes on targets?
Well, I don't want to say that. I mean, I can't tell that to a reporter. If they misbehave, if they do something bad, but right now, we'll see. But it's a possibility that could happen, certainly.
The war launched by the US and Israel in late February has been on hold since 8th of April, with one failed round of peace talks held in Pakistan. Iran has now submitted a 14-point response to a 9-point US proposal. Iran's Tasnim news agency has reported that the proposal was submitted via Pakistan. The plan calls for ending the war on all fronts, including Lebanon, and addresses issues such as guarantees against military aggression and the withdrawal of US military forces from the region surrounding Iran. It also includes the release of frozen Iranian assets, removal of sanctions, and calls for a new mechanism on the Strait of Hormuz. The news agency reported that US had proposed a 2-month ceasefire, but Iran believes the issue should be resolved within 30 days, with negotiations focused on ending the war rather than extending a ceasefire. Iran's deputy foreign minister has said that the proposal is aimed at permanent end to the war, adding that the ball is now in US court to choose between diplomacy and continued confrontation.
And monopolizing the narrative by controlling the propaganda atmosphere. Regrettably, Mr. President, Iran's adversaries have long sought a pretext to...
Well, as the battle to control the Strait of Hormuz continues, United States has issued a warning to shipping companies, saying that they could face sanctions for making payments to Iran to safely pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Notably, about a fifth of the world's trade in oil and natural gas typically pass through this strait that was effectively blocked by Iran on 7th of March. Tehran then formalized the closure, barring vessels from what it called hostile nations. This included the US, Israel, and its allies. At first, Iran imposed complete closure and threatened to attack ships that breached it. Second phase began on 9th of March, when President Donald Trump claimed that the strait was open, though it remained firmly under Iranian control. Days later, it was on 15th of March, Iran introduced a toll system for ships passing through the strait, charging up to $2 million per vessel. It, however, offered exemptions to certain countries, which included India, China, and Russia, which were allowed to pass without paying any tolls. Then came in the US blockade on 13th of April. Washington announced a naval blockade targeting all the ships coming to and going from the Iranian ports. On 17th of April, Iran announced the reopening of the strait, linking it to a separate 10-day Israel-Lebanon truce. However, on 18th of April, Tehran reversed course and cited the ongoing US naval blockade. Earlier in the day, US President Donald Trump slammed Iran's blockade and toll fees, calling it cash-starved, and even claimed that Iran is losing up to $500 million per day. The closure led to global oil prices soaring. Around 20% of global LNG supply has been affected, rising up to 84% in Europe and over 100% in Asia. Global LNG prices are now hovering somewhere between $21 to $22. The spat further escalated, with the IRGC seizing 2 vessels for what it called maritime violations. The ships, identified as MSC Francesca and the Epimeme Mondis, were detained for operating without the required authorization and for manipulating navigation systems. A war launched, fought, and then, in the words of President Donald Trump, terminated. That is what Trump told the US Congress, saying that the US hostilities with Iran have now been terminated amidst the ongoing ceasefire. In fact, Trump even argued that he is not required to meet any deadline for congressional approval to continue the ongoing war. But the contradiction is clear. There is still no final peace agreement, no formal treaty has been signed, and in the waters around Iran, hostilities do not look like an ending at all. Our next story tells you more.
Has the US war on Iran really been terminated, or is it just entering a new phase? US President Donald Trump told the Congress that hostilities with Iran have terminated under the ongoing ceasefire agreement. But Trump's declaration comes without the finality of peace. On Capitol Hill and in international law debates, the answer remains unclear. Under the US War Powers Act of 1973, the president must seek congressional authorization within 60 days of a military action or end hostilities. Under US law, the military act, if not authorized, must be brought to an end after the 60-day window expires. Now, US lawmakers are divided, with some claiming the deadline has expired and others arguing the ceasefire pauses the clock on the legal requirements. Trump has defended his position, arguing he is not required to meet the 60-day deadline due to the ceasefire holding between both sides. And yet, despite his use of the word terminated, the military reality on the ground and at sea tells a different story. A US naval blockade targeting Iranian ports remains active, with multiple vessels linked to Tehran being intercepted or redirected in international waters. At the same time, Iran has continued to exert pressure over the Strait of Hormuz, a waterway critical to the global energy trade. Nearly all foreign shipping through the strait has been restricted, with only select vessels allowed to transit after obtaining permission from Iran. Meanwhile, according to the US Central Command, it has redirected 45 vessels this week to ensure compliance with its blockade. The Pentagon officials say the measure will continue as long as necessary. Trump, while he was praising the US Navy, said that they were acting like pirates.
And we took over the ship, we took over the cargo, took over the oil. It's a very profitable business. Who would have thought we were doing that? We're like pirates. We're sort of like pirates.
Iran has responded with a warning, saying it will maintain restrictions on the Strait of Hormuz as long as the US pressure continues. Behind closed doors, diplomatic channels are still active, but both sides seemingly remain reluctant. Trump has said that he is not satisfied with Iran's latest proposal to end the war. According to Iranian state media, Tehran delivered a draft proposal to Pakistan, which is playing the role of mediator. But Iran's foreign ministry has cautioned against expecting quick results.
Our negotiations with the United States are not conventional or ordinary negotiations. They are negotiations with a very bloody background. At this point, I can no longer even speak of a wall of mistrust. In fact, we can't even say the issue of trust in relations between Iran and the United States. The problem with the American side is that it has always expected to impose its maximum demands during negotiations and throughout the entire diplomatic process, pushing the other side to accept them.
There is no final peace deal yet, no formal agreement, and no clear endpoint to the confrontation. So, when Trump says the war is terminated, what does that really mean? Because in the Strait of Hormuz, amid the blockade pressure and the seized vessels, and with the deal still unsigned, the war does not look like it has ended. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
The governor of Mexico's Sinaloa state, Ruben Rocha, has announced that he would step down, which comes days after the US accused him of maintaining ties with a cartel. In a major escalation of US pressure on Mexico, the US has announced it charged Rocha and other ruling party officials for alleged links with the powerful Sinaloa cartel. While Rocha said that he would temporarily step aside from the job, he said that the allegations against him were false and ill-intended.
The accusations made against me are false and malicious. I can look my people and my family in the eye because I have not betrayed them, and I never will. I will prove that firmly when the justice institutions of our country require it.
Rocha belongs to the ruling Morena party. US accuses him and other Morena officials of conspiring with leaders of the cartel to import massive quantities of narcotics into the US in exchange for political support and bribes. It has even put Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum under serious political pressure. In a strong response, Sheinbaum has warned that the presence of US officials at an anti-narcotics operation in the northern state of Chihuahua must remain an exception and should not be repeated. The Mexican president said that Mexico and the US have been working under an understanding which is based on coordination and respect for each country's sovereignty.
In the statement to the ambassador and the government of the United States, what we essentially say is that we are working in very good coordination based on the understanding we reached with respect for the sovereignty of both countries, and they agree with that understanding. So what we told them is that the federal government was not aware of the involvement of these people, and we hope this was an exceptional case.
Sheinbaum said the bilateral relationship had produced results for both countries and should not be undermined, while adding that the state and local authorities must comply with the constitution and the law. The involvement of the US officials came to light after two of them came to light after two of them and two Mexican officials were killed in a car crash on 19th of April following an operation in the region. Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te has arrived in the African country of Eswatini after an earlier trip was cancelled as several countries revoked overflight permits, and that was due to pressure from China. The Eswatini government has drawn flack from Beijing, which suggested not to pull chestnuts out of fire. In a post on his social media, Lai said that he arrived in Eswatini on a trip not previously announced by either government. Lai revealed that the trip was a result of secret arrangements by the diplomatic and national security teams. He added that the trip will contribute to deeper friendship between Taiwan and Eswatini thanks to closer economic, agricultural, cultural and educational links. The visit comes after a gap of 2 weeks, as Taiwan Presidential Office spokesperson said in a handout video that although this trip was initially postponed due to unfounded external factors, Taiwan is still committed to engage with the world.
At the sincere invitation of King Mswati III of Eswatini, President Lai Ching-te has smoothly arrived in Eswatini to begin a state visit. Although the trip was initially delayed due to unfounded external factors, none of this has deterred Taiwan's determination to engage with the world. The visit was planned in accordance with 3 principles: national dignity, flight safety, and international norms, to ensure the entire trip could be carried out and concluded smoothly.
The Taiwanese president also took aim at Beijing and said that his country will never be deterred by external pressures and shall continue to engage with the world no matter the challenges. In fact, just last month, Lai had postponed a visit to attend the 40th anniversary of Eswatini's king session with Taiwan, saying that Seychelles, Mauritius and Madagascar had unilaterally revoked flight permits for Lai's aircraft to cross airspace they managed because of Chinese pressure. It was also the first time a Taiwan president had cancelled an entire foreign trip due to denial of airspace access, representing what appeared to be a new Chinese strategy to curb the island's international engagement. Meanwhile, spokesperson of China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has issued a statement, and that was issued shortly after Taiwanese president announced his arrival in Eswatini, that Lai was performing a laughable stunt in front of the world and referred to him as being smuggled out of Taiwan. It was in 2023 that then Taiwanese president visited Eswatini, the small landlocked nation with a population of around 1.2 million. Eswatini became the only African country excluded from tariff-free access to China's market because of its ties to Taiwan. On Friday, Taiwan's government expressed concerns after Chinese foreign minister told US Secretary of State in a phone call that Taiwan is the biggest risk when it comes to relations between Beijing and Washington. Shifting focus to the UK, where public anger has been mounting after Prime Minister Keir Starmer's niece, Elise Sandover, was chosen to stand in local elections in South London. Sandover has been selected as Labour Party's council candidate for Bensham Manor, which is regarded as one of Labour Party's most winnable seats. However, grassroots activists say that they were shut out of the selection process and claim that Sandover has been parachuted into a safe Labour seat because of a famous uncle. Local members say that this has even led to questions over transparency and fairness within the Labour Party. The row has been exacerbated by the removal of several sitting councillors before candidate selection began. Sandover is a daughter of Katie Swabe, one of Starmer's 3 siblings and the twin sister of Nick Starmer, and was selected as a candidate last year after working as a parliamentary intern. Although there is no allegation of wrongdoing against Sandover, her family connections to Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who is also the Labour Party leader, have drawn scrutiny in recent days. The Labour Party has not yet commented directly, but it had previously maintained that its candidate selection procedures are thorough and follow internal rules. News from the world of business. Spirit Airlines has ceased operations, becoming the first major airline casualty linked to the ongoing Iran war.
This morning at 3 a.m., Spirit Airlines ceased operations. So what that means is Spirit does not have airplanes in the air flying as of this morning. Also, their call centers are closed and they don't have staff at ticket counters. So if you have a flight scheduled with Spirit Airlines, don't show up at the airport. There will be no one here to assist you. What Spirit Airlines is now going to do is go through an orderly liquidation process. We'll see how that develops over the course of the next several days.
The low-cost carrier failed to secure emergency funding as jet fuel prices surged, nearly doubling over the past 2 months. All flights have been cancelled, leaving passengers stranded across key hubs like Orlando and Las Vegas. The shutdown is even expected to impact thousands of jobs and disrupt budget travel across the US. The government and major carriers have now stepped in to cap fares and accommodate affected passengers. Even as the crisis unfolded, the US government has signaled restraint on industry-wide bailouts. Budget airlines had sought a $2.5 billion liquidity pool, and that is to offset rising fuel costs, proposing equity-linked support. However, Transportation Secretary has made it absolutely clear that a bailout is not necessary at this stage, urging airlines to tap private markets instead.
Now, you've heard that other airlines have talked about requesting a $2.5 billion bailout. I am in continual contact, and my team is in contact with all the CEOs of the airlines. I would say that at this point, I don't think it's necessary. They do have access to cash. If they want to come to the U.S. government, we would be a lender of last resort. If they can find dollars in the private markets, I think that's better for them.
At the heart of the crisis is a sharp spike in energy prices triggered by the Iran conflict, which has disrupted flows through the Strait of Hormuz. This has significantly increased operating costs for airlines, particularly low-cost carriers that rely on thin margins. With other carriers also under pressure, the sector now faces a critical test, and that is whether it can absorb rising costs without government support or pass them on to consumers through higher fares. What if one of the greatest playwrights in history got a second act, this time with a little help from technology? Well, a brand new play inspired by Molière is all set to premiere in Versailles, and it's been written with the help of artificial intelligence. The project, called Molière Ex Machina, has been in works since 2023 using the French-developed Mistral AI. Creators trained the system on Molière's plays, writings and historical texts, and that is to recreate his signature wit. The story follows Gironde, a naive man who gets tricked by a fake astrologer trying to manipulate his daughter's marriage. The idea came from clues in Molière's own work, where astrology often appeared as a tool for deception. Researchers believe that this could have been a theme in what would have explored further. The script wasn't just generated once. AI produced multiple versions of each scene, which were then carefully edited and refined by scholars and language experts to keep it authentic to the time. Even the costumes have a historical touch. Designs were inspired by original sketches from Henri Guizet, one of Molière's collaborators. These were recreated using traditional techniques with detailed hand-stitching to match the era. The play will now take the stage at the Royal Opera inside the Palace of Versailles, a venue deeply connected to Louis XIV, who once supported Molière himself. It's a rare blend of history and technology, bringing a centuries-old voice back to life for a modern audience. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of our broadcast. News and updates to continue. You're watching WION World is One. Stay tuned.
The next few days are going to be intense. A number of allegations and accusations being made by both parties.
हम लड़ेंगे, बांग्ला जीतेंगे।
इस बार बंगाल में भी कमल खिलना तय है।
5.73 crore voters in the state will get to determine who is going to rule Tamil Nadu next.
As Michael scripts history at the box office despite mixed reviews, we take a look at the most successful music biopics of all time. Welcome The Devil Wears Prada 2 with our list of iconic fashion films. And know what prompted luxury label Prada to launch a made in India Kolhapuri sandals line. All this and much more with me, Rhythm Sharma, on WION E Club at these times.